And that's going to be page 991. 991. So I thought, Michael, this was a kind of appropriate one, maybe, since we're kind of talking about that time, creation and all that. 991, let's sing. This is my Please mark page 916. 916 will be the song after the lesson. Brother Michael.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. I always love the chance to get up here and have a chance to speak. Topic tonight is creation versus evolution. Where could I be going with this? Essentially, there are some here that believe in a young earth. There are some here that believe in an old earth. I am not here to tell you what to believe. I am here to show you the process and how I came up with what I came up with. This is my journey, so to speak, when it comes to creation versus evolution. So let's define a term real quick. This is what we're going to base it on. Science, a systematized knowledge derived from observation, study, etc. Evidence. Through observation, through study. Now, these are the four great questions that every religion tries to answer. Who am I? And what am I worth? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going when I die? Now, what you might not realize is every person has a worldview. And that worldview has a say-so into how you answer these questions. Could it be there was an amazing Big Bang, made this world from nothing? It's a humanist worldview. Men is God and answers to no one. And then you have others who think, this is an incredible design. There must have been a smart designer. A creationist worldview. God is God and judges all men. So, if evolution is true, who am I and what am I worth? You are nothing important. Actually, you're part of the problem. You pollute the air, you litter, and matter of fact, the more you we can get rid of, the better. Kind of a normal thinking of a evolutionist mind. Where did I come from? A cosmic burp about 20 billion years ago. About 20 million years ago, there was a big bang. Then about 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. It was molten lava. It cooled down. Then there was a crust on the Earth. And then it rained for millions of years. And about 3 billion years ago, there was this primordial soup. And from that primordial soup, here we are. Why am I here? You have no purpose. So you might as well have fun. If it feels good, do it. That phrase right there, there was a big influx of disease, extramarital sex, all around the 1960s when Eisenhower instituted that evolution be taught in the schools. If it feels good, do it. Where am I going when I die? To the grave. And you're going to be recycled as a worm or a plant. What if the Bible was true? If the Bible is true, well, that changes our worldview completely. We know that God created the earth, which means he sets the rules. If he sets the rules, we have to know what those rules are. If we don't follow those rules, then there's going to be a point in time where we might be in some trouble. So, I'd like to read you some quotes. If you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and often enough, the people will believe it. People are more likely to believe a big lie than a small one. There said those words. Did you know in order to tell a good lie, you have to mix some truth in with it? Let's take, for example, rat poison. You think you can get rats to take poison straight the way it is? No. If you look on the back of a box of rat poison, 99.995% is good food. 0.005% is poison. Kind of shows you how a little bit of poison can go a long way in corrupting things. So we have 6 different types of evolution that they like to base things off of. One is actually observed, and one is actually studied, which is number 6. Cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, and matter, aka the Big Bang. They believe that everything came from nothingness. So in essence, nothing exploded, and we're here. Then you have chemical evolution, the origin of higher elements, which has a chicken and an egg effect. You get the elements, higher elements from the stars, but you need the elements to create the stars. So which one came first, the elements or the stars? Then you have stellar and planetary evolution, the origin of the stars, planets. No one has ever seen a star form. But they have seen stars explode. Also known as a nova or a supernova. Happens about once every 30 years. Organic evolution, the origin of life. Life has to start from non-living matter. Then you have macroevolution, changing from one kind to another. Boys, I'd like for me to answer me one question. I have a wolf, a coyote, and a fox, and a banana. Which one doesn't belong? I didn't hear the answer. The banana is the correct answer. 3 of them are species of dogs, not kinds. You have kinds and you have species, 2 completely different things. A dog is a kind, but a dog cannot breed into a cat and cannot breed into a bird. 2 different words being used. Matter of fact, when Darwin came out with his book, The Origin of Species, he decided to change the word kinds to species. A little way for him to slip under the radar. And then you have microevolution, variations within its kind. A dog makes a dog. It might be a different version. Matter of fact, there are people out there right now that breed different types of dogs to get something completely different. That is something we have observed. That is something which was studied. That is true. When you talk to somebody about evolution, they're referring to number 6. When they decide to change and go to the first 5, they've changed it from science to religion, because there is no way you can prove the first 5. The first 5 is all taken on faith. No evidence. Does anybody know what the laws of conservation of angular momentum is? Yes. The outside, if you are spinning something, take for instance, oh, is that slide not up there? I guess it's not. Okay, I guess that was after it crashed the first time. I had a merry-go-round up there, so I want you to picture a merry-go-round, okay? You have a bunch of 4th graders, set them on a merry-go-round, and you get the high school team. And you get the high school team to start to spin them in a circle. They're going to go through 4 different phases. The first phase, they're screaming, faster, faster, faster. When they get up to about 30 miles an hour, they're not screaming anymore. They're concentrating on holding on. Then when you get up to about 60 miles an hour, they're screaming again, but they're screaming for the high school students to slow down, stop spinning. When they get to about 100 miles an hour is when they start to fly off. And when they fly off, you'll notice something very interesting if they don't hit a tree or something else close by. When they fly off, they're spinning the same exact direction as the merry-go-round was spinning. That is the law of conservation of angular momentum. You will spin in the same way you were spinning, whether you're attached to it or not, because the outside is spinning faster than the inside. So if that's the case, if the Big Bang were true, why do Venus and Uranus rotate backwards from other planets? Why do 8 out of the 91 known moons rotate backwards? Why does Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune have moons orbiting both directions? Why do whole galaxies spin backwards? So now we're going to hit this. This is what I wanted to basically focus on the whole time. Dinosaurs. That is one of the hardcore rulings when it comes to evolution, is they want to focus on dinosaurs. Well, guess what we're going to focus on tonight? Dinosaurs. But what I'd like to do is I like to look at it through a different parameter. And that parameter is looking at it through I can't see with my glasses on or off. So let's define some terms first. Dinosaurs were reptiles, but they were different in 2 ways. The first way, they had large skull holes in their head. And then they also had their back legs were under their body, not like the reptiles we see today and the lizards we see today. Crocodiles, for instance, crocodiles have them more on the side, used for lunging and short-term distance, but not used for long-term travel. So the back legs were under the dinosaur's body. So we're going to look at things. What I like to do is look at them through a biblical history lens. This is defined as the Word of God is true and is the history of the earth. The Bible is the true history written by eyewitnesses and inspired by God. And then you have the secular history lens, which is defined not as history, but full of fictional stories told by people who weren't there. Just a bunch of theories. So, these are the 7 C's of the Bible. You have creation, which God called very good. Then something happened. Adam sinned. The land was cursed. Death is now in the world. There are thorns and thistles of the land. And then a catastrophe happens. The flood came in because of the wickedness of man. Destroyed everybody but 8 people. Then there was confusion. The Tower of Babel, where again, they rebelled, and God changed the languages and set them apart. And then God did something very interesting. He decided to star in his own show. Christ came to the earth. And then number 6, Christ took our sins and paid the price for us on the cross. And then finally, what hasn't happened yet, but will happen in the future because it is God's promise, is the consummation. God is going to return to take his children home. That is the Bible in the nutshell. So, looking through biblical reality lenses, we have the dinosaurs are made on the 6th day. Dinosaurs are primarily land animals. So land animals and people were made on day 6. So dinosaurs, according to the Bible, not millions of years old. Dinosaurs lived alongside humans. Some more reasons. Romans 5, 12 through 14. Therefore, just as though one man's sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men, because all sinned. For unto the law sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam until Moses, even over those who had not sinned, in the likeness of the offense of Adam, who is a type of him who was to come. Also in 1 Corinthians 15, 20 and 22, but now Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who are asleep. For since by a man came death, by a man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. Was there death before Adam? No. No. Okay. Came over that time. Death was brought into the world because of Adam's sin, and everything Adam had dominion over was cursed along with him. That includes every animal, every bird, every land creature, everything, because everything was under Adam's dominion. So everything, therefore, has to be cursed. So is there any physical evidence of dinosaurs? Well, March 2015, an evolutionist found a T-Rex fossil, and it was an unfortunate accident. Broke. But was it really an accident? Inside the femur was soft tissue, still malleable, still stretchy. You can actually take it and move it. If it was millions of years old, it would not be able to do that. There was also veins and actual blood cells found in the bone. Does anybody know there was carbon-14 still in the bone? Does anybody know what carbon-14 is? It is a rate of what they use for dating. More carbon-14, which essentially carbon-14 was in the plants. The animals would eat the plants, whatever ate the animals. Carbon-14 transitions over. The problem is carbon-14 has a shelf life of 5,700 years. So if there's carbon-14 in a bone such as a T-Rex femur, and it only has a certain shelf life, kind of fits more in the ballpark of creation than it does evolution. So, looking through the lenses, dinosaurs did not evolve, and they were made after their own kinds. They multiplied that way. So, what do you think the dinosaurs ate? Let's take this example. That's a glorified picture of a T-Rex. So, let's answer this question. What did the T-Rex eat? Was it A, a plant eater, B, a meat eater, C, a scavenger, or D, a plant and meat eater? Who thinks it was A? Who thinks it was B? Who thinks it was C? And who thinks it was D? T-Rex was a plant eater. How do I know that? Then God said in Genesis 1, 29 and 30, then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed. It shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. Dinosaurs at the time of creation were vegetarians. Humans at the time of creation were vegetarians. It's not until Genesis chapter 9 where he gives, you got that species that has long fangs too. I forgot about these pictures. It's the baboon. But what do they eat? Primarily vegetables, fruits. Anybody know what that's a skull of? With the big fangs right there? That is the skull of a fruit bat. Use the fangs to get into the fruit. Is it possible a T-Rex used their teeth to get into a big old juicy watermelon? Kind of what we do today, isn't it? We stick a knife in and rip it apart. Very easy for them to do it. So, we don't find the word dinosaur in the Bible anywhere. That's because the word itself was created in 1841 by a man named Sir Richard Owen. Dinosaur means terrible lizard. The King James Version was translated in 1611. So there is no possible way that the word dinosaur could get in the King James Version if it was translated earlier than 1841. And also in the Bible, you won't find email, computer, or automobile in there either. So this is the word you do find referenced in the Bible. It is the word dragon. Oh, what does the word dragon mean? It is the Hebrew word is tanin, is how it is pronounced, tanin. It means monstrous creature. Those are the verses right there that reference, that is not an and sign by Exodus. That's supposed to be chapter 7, but I held the shift button down too long. So that is Exodus 7, verses 9 through 12. Which it uses the word dragon or tanin, which means monstrous creature. And now monstrous creature was a broad term. It could reference a whale. It could reference something different. It was something massive, monstrous, according to how they viewed things at that time. So, what about specific dinosaurs? Well, let's look at the Hebrew word behemoth. This is a very specific word. This is actually the original Hebrew word. It was not changed. And behemoth means beasts of beasts. So let's talk about a little story of a man named Job, who had everything, was rich, 10 children, livestock, sheep, land, loses it. And then for quite a few chapters, his friends and his wife are basically telling him the whole time, hey, you had to have done something wrong. What's wrong with you? What did you do wrong that all this stuff happened? But then in Job chapter 38, it gets very interesting because Job's kind of getting a little frustrated, and then he asks God, why don't you answer me? And then God takes himself and he decides to go on a little rant himself. And out of the next few chapters, asks him 84 questions to which Job does not respond to a single one. Doesn't respond to a single one. But in chapter 40, starting in verse 15, behold now behemoth. I'm going to stop right there. The word behold, will God tell us to do something if we are unable to do it? How can Job understand what a behemoth is unless he's actually beheld it? Behold now behemoth, which I made as well as you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold now, his strength is in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He bends his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze. His limbs are like bars of iron. He is the first of the ways of God. Let his maker bring near his sword. Surely the mountains bring him food, and all the beasts of the field play there. Under the lotus plants he lies down, in the covert of the reeds in the marsh. The lotus plants cover him with shade. The willows of the brook surround him. If a river rages, he is not alarmed. He is confident. Though the Jordan rushes to his mouth, can anyone capture him when he is on watch? With barbs, can anyone pierce his nose? They say in the little descriptions in the Bible that it could possibly be an elephant or a hippo. Quick question. Does that look like the tail of a cedar? How about that? Does that look like the tail of a cedar? It does not. What about that? Quite possibly. Let's go a little farther. Leviathan, Job 41. I had my Bible somewhere. I don't know where I put it. So I'm going to turn there because I didn't want to put it all on PowerPoint for this one. So Job chapter 41. And you see I have quotations on there. What? Fire-breathing dragon. So I'm just going to read the whole chapter real quick. Can you pull in the Leviathan with a fish hook, or tie down his tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he keep begging you for mercy? Will he speak to you with gentle words? Will he make an agreement with you for you to take him as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of him like a bird, or put him on a leash for your girls? Will traders barter for him? Will they divide him up among the merchants? Can you fill his hide with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on him, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing him is false. The mere sight of him is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse him. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. I will not fail to speak of his limbs, his strength, and his graceful form. Who can strip off his outer coat? Who would approach him with a bridle? Who dares open the doors of his mouth, ringed about with his fearsome teeth? His back has rows of shield tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. His snorting throws out flashes of light. His eyes are like the rays of dawn. Fire brands stream from his mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from his nostrils, and from a boiling pot over a fire of reeds. His breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from his mouth. Strength resides in his neck. Dismay goes before him. The folds of his flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. His chest is hard as a rock, hard as a lower millstone. He rises up. The mighty are terrified. They retreat before his thrashing. The sword that reaches him has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron he treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make him flee. Sling stones are like chaff to him. Chaff. A club seems to him but a piece of straw. He laughs at the rattling of the lance. His undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. He makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron, and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. Behind him leaves a glistening wake. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is his equal, a creature without fear. He looks down on all that are haughty. He is king over all that is proud. That's the Leviathan in a nutshell. So what does that look like? In the footnotes, some say it looks like a crocodile. Have you seen a crocodile breathe fire? That's what they call a plesiosaur right there. It is an aquatic creature. Also, have you seen a crocodile rise up? How far can a crocodile go when it rises up? About 1.5 feet. Doesn't really strike fear if it can only raise up about 1.5 feet. So you might be thinking to yourselves at this point, okay, he's gone off the deep end. There are no such things as fire-breathing dragons. Maybe not now. What about this creature? Anybody know what this creature is? This is what they call a bombardier beetle. It has 2 individual sacs in the belly of its body. At the very end of its tail is where both of those meet together. When both of those meet together and spray towards an enemy, or spray towards whatever's trying to hurt it, instantly get burned with 212 degrees temperature. Yes, it is boiling when it touches what happened, when it touches the creature that it wants to. If it wasn't designed exactly that way, and let's say they mixed together inside the body of the beetle would literally explode. That's what would happen. What about this picture? This is a fossil of an electric eel. If you were just given this, would you at any point think that that creature was able to give off thousands of volts of electricity? No, you wouldn't. So is it possible? According to what the Bible says, if the Bible is infallible truth, very good possibility. What about flying reptiles? Let's look at Isaiah 14:29. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. That word serpent right there is the tanin. Also in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 6. The burden of the beasts of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, from whence come the young and old lion, the viper and fiery flying serpent, They will carry their riches upon the shoulders of young asses, and their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that shall not profit from them. In these two references, the word fiery can mean a couple different things. Fiery can have a burning type of connotation, or something bright, something that really catches your eye. But in this version of Tanin, they actually use the word seraph, which is short for seraphim. Just an interesting thought. So if these instances were mentioned in the Bible, that would mean that they would have had to survive the ark. And that's one of the hardest things for people to believe. Because critics like to say, you can't fit the dinosaurs in the ark. It can't be done. Well, let's ask a couple questions. How big was the ark? How many animals were on board the ark? So it was measured in cubits, which, if anybody knows what a cubit is from the elbow to the tip of your finger. That's about the length, and it could vary depending on how tall the people were at that time. So if you use that equivalent, that measurement from elbow to fingertip, it's approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet tall. Its holding capacity equals 522 railroad stock cars. That's a lot of room. Just think, every time you're sitting there waiting for a train to go by and there's only 125 cars that pass by, and it takes forever, multiply that by 4 or 5. And you kind of get the understanding of how much room. And then we go back to, you're supposed to bring 2 of every kind, not 2 of every species. 2 of every kind. So when they come off of the ark, they can go multiply and get the different species from the 2 of every kind. Now there were also clean, which was 7 of every clean. So another question we have to ask. Are we going to bring old dinosaurs or young dinosaurs? Do we want to bring the really big ones that don't have much life left, or are we going to bring the really young ones that have a better chance of making babies and multiplying when they get off the ark? Now, you have to understand, too, some dinosaurs never got bigger than a dog or a chicken. Not very big. Matter of fact, the largest dinosaur egg ever caught or ever recorded was about the size of a football. So even the big brachiosauruses came from a football-sized egg, not a football-sized egg. So I got this off of, I don't remember the site now. I had it filled out there before it got blank. But this was estimates on how many animals would be in the ark. Of course, mammals being the overwhelming majority because of the amount of kinds in reference to reptiles and birds, but essentially 7,428 mammals, 4,602 birds, 3,724 reptiles, which include dragons or dinosaurs, however you want to refer to them. In the ancient language, it's dragon, monstrous creature, for a total of 15,754. So we have a space that's available. If you do the equations of 450 feet by 75 feet times 3 levels, is 101,250 square feet. Birds take up 2,621 for 2.6%. Mammals take up 29,130. Reptiles 15,700 square feet, 15.5%, for a total of 46.8%, or around 47,453 square feet. These are embellished numbers. When they came up with the estimates of how many kinds there were, they took all the extinct, all the living, and they added more that they thought they might discover in the future. And those were the numbers. So about 46% of it was filled with animals. But then you have, of course, food. They had to supply food for these animals. And there's food. You fit some in other layers, plenty of room to fit food for the animals. So, are there dragons in history? So now that we've looked through some things here, we have to look at, if we want to do our due diligence, we have to look at the eyewitness accounts, so to speak. You have the legend of St. George. Legend of St. George. It's a land being victimized by a dragon and eating their livestock. Legend has it is St. George came in there, slayed the dragon, and began preaching Christianity. You know, it's interesting, the depictions of what he slew, that is a fossil of a baryonyx that were found around the area or that part of England in 1983. You have Marco Polo. Everybody knows Marco Polo. You like to go through Walmart sometimes. Somebody screams Marco. Somebody across the screams Polo. Well, Marco Polo in AD 1271 reported the Chinese royal chariots were sometimes pulled by dragons, the ancient connotation of the word. At this time, they were rare, so only rich had access to raising a dragon. And in 1611, the Chinese emperor appointed a position of royal dragon feeder. Yes, that's right. You could have a job feeding dragons. There was also some Viking connotations in reference to dragons, which anybody who's ever seen the movie How to Train Your Dragons kind of has that little Viking scene. But there are connotations in the Viking history too, which I decided to cut out of this. So, how to train your dragon. Just get yourself a job feeding dragons for the Chinese emperor. Anybody who's ever played D&D knows that name at the top, the Tarrasque. Very fearsome creature in D&D. That's the game. Funny thing is, in Nurloc, France, the name of the city was changed to Tarascon, or Tarrasque, in honor of the dragon that was killed there. Described as being larger than an ox and had horns on its head. Looks very similar to that. In Bologna, Italy, and I'm not feeding you a line of bologna, in Bologna, Italy, a peasant killed a small hissing dragon and brought the body to a famous naturalist known as Ulysses Aldrovandus. He documented it, kept very good records. It was unlike anything he's ever seen. He described it. It was definitely reptilian, so well that the experts believe it was a Tanystropheus, which is that little thing. Not very big at all. That right there might be knee high. Very small. That's the very last slide I have on my thing, so the rest of it's going to have to be done from here. There was a situation with that too. I filled out about half of it, lost it completely, actually recovered it, decided to save it and continue on, and then lost that, and I only recovered back what was half there. So then I was up here for the past couple hours trying to get everything on it, but it didn't happen. Herodotus, in his second book, Herodotus was a history recorded history. And he writes in his second book, "There is a place in Arabia not far from the town of Budo where I went to learn about the winged serpents. When I arrived there, I saw an innumerable amount of bones and backbones of serpents, many heaps of backbones, great and small and even smaller." And he goes on to continue. "The winged serpents are said to fly from Arabia at the beginning of spring, making for Egypt. But the ibis birds encounter the invaders in this pass and kill them." When you look at further documents, the Egyptians actually worship the ibis bird for killing the annoying winged serpents. According to the Egyptians, the winged serpents were very poisonous if they were to bite you. He describes it as the serpents were, I don't know what to do with it. The serpents were like water snakes. Their wings are not feathered, but very like the wings of a bat. That is what they believe to be what Herodotus found. Though I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. We'll call it the rudder serpent, because its tail looks like a rudder. But then you also have in 1990. Oh, that's late. 1990. Natives in the African Congo claim to have seen a large creature resembling a sauropod dinosaur. If you don't know what a sauropod dinosaur, that's where you get the Brachiosaurus, the long neck, cedar tree. The creature is said to kill elephants. If you were to show a picture to the natives in the African Congo, they would call it Mokele Mbembe. Mokele Mbembe. If you show them a bear, a lion, they have no idea what that is. But if you show them a picture of a sauropod, a brachiosaur, Mokele Mbembe, they know what that is. And then you have something that's not a dinosaur. It's known as a dinosaur tree. The Wollemi pine. Fossils of Wollemi pine have been found in what geologists would refer to as the Jurassic rock layers along with dinosaurs. But I can go into the whole geological survey and how that's fallible, but we don't have time for that. But the Jurassic rock layers, along with dinosaurs, previously presumed to be extinct for millions of years, Wollemi pines have been discovered in several remote locations in Australia in 1994. There are 3 locations we know of in 1994 that these were discovered. I don't know of a tree being able to get up and run to evade detection. But yet, we didn't discover it again until 1994. So is it possible there are things that we still have yet to discover? So if dinosaurs are extinct, how did they get to that point? You have the mammoth, you have the giant sloth that are extinct. You still have tree sloths. They have elephants, but they don't have woolly mammoths or giant sloths. And it's possible all the dinosaurs are gone, or dragons are gone. So what killed them off? Possibly disease, possibly famine, possibly hunted to extinction. You see a lot of cave drawings where it shows drawings of dinosaurs and man hunting dinosaurs. There's actually one in Australia that shows a plesiosaur. It shows these bunch of stick figures with javelins or spears in their hand, and you see this plesiosaur, and you actually see a little guy in the stomach of the plesiosaur. It's a pretty funny picture. Maybe we killed them off. I got a question. Most of us are from around DeQuincy. How many grizzly attacks did we have last year? Grizzly bear attacks did we have last year? Yeah, in DeQuincy. Yeah, in DeQuincy. None. But grizzly bears did occupy this territory at one time. But because we settled here, we took over, we took control, we drove them out of the area, and we civilized it. Very possible we did the same thing with the dinosaurs. But ultimately, the reasons why they died off is because of Adam's sin. He brought death to this world. And Christ came to give us the chance to have eternal life. Adam's sin brought death. Christ's death brought redemption. See, if we look through the secular world's eyes, they tend to tell fictional stories about dinosaurs to teach evolution. We can use the facts about dinosaurs, the truth about them, to show people that God's word is true from the very beginning. To train the world to look through biblical glasses, the evidence that lines up with the scriptures, and it always does if you understand it. The Bible is not just a book of moral stories. It's the history of the world, and the author is God. I thank you for your time tonight. I wish I could have had a few more slides. There was some doozies too. But if there is anyone who has, that is why we are here. That's why we meet, to lean upon each other and to help bring each other closer to God, closer to Christ, and hopefully one day to heaven. So if anyone has a need, will you please come as we stand and as we sing?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for being here tonight. Brother Ron, would you dismiss us, please?